Welcome, Elisa, and thank you for speaking to us in the context of the OECD Southeast Asia Regional Forum on Human Capital Development in Southeast Asia. You are the head of the Center for Skills at the OECD, which supports countries in developing and implementing better skills policies. But before that, you've also worked with the World Bank, UNICEF, the African Development Bank, GIZ, and in the private sector. So we look forward to all your insights on this today. So let's get started with a broad question. Which skills are essential during and after COVID-19? And has COVID-19 actually taught us new skills?
Thanks, Carolyn, and thanks for having us as the Center for Skills in this today. What COVID-19 has done is really underscore the importance of developing skill sets that make individuals resistant to unforeseen shocks and structural changes. In such a rapidly changing context and ongoing megatrends, digitalization, demographic change, climate change, the development of what we call transversal skills, which are skills that are not specifically related to a particular job, task, academic discipline, or area of knowledge, and that can be used in a wide variety of situations and work settings, can actually help individuals to adapt to changing environment. And that is important because many workers will need to change occupations and reinvent themselves to adapt to long-term changes in jobs and skills demand. In our upcoming Skills Outlook 2021 publication, we have evidence from online job vacancy data from about 32 countries. And that shows that across job openings, communication, teamwork, and organizational skills are currently the most in-demand transversal skills. Other important transversal skills include analytical skills, problem solving, leadership, and presentation skills, since they're used across a variety of jobs and work contexts. Digital skills, in line with the trend of virtually all sectors adopting increasingly digital technologies, are also highly transversal. But on all of these transversal skills, it will be important to support their development through inclusive, affordable, accessible, and adaptable lifelong learning programs.
Okay, so you pointed out many important skills. So let's move on to how to build these, specifically in Southeast Asia, because we know the region is characterized by high informality, the remoteness of the rural population, and also issues in education quality and skills marketability, despite relatively high education spending. So how can the OECD support individual countries and also ASEAN in addressing these challenges?
So many OECD projects provide support for individual countries and ASEAN in addressing these challenges that you mentioned. It's a collective and a sustained effort from the OECD for this important region. At the OECD Center for Skills, we have developed a skills strategy for Southeast Asia, and that strategy provides Southeast Asian countries with an overview of the skills challenges and opportunities in the region. Many of the issues you have mentioned, such as high informality, the remoteness of the rural population, and issues in education quality and skills marketability, are covered in this publication. The OECD Skills Strategy for Southeast Asia is also highly relevant for the various efforts of the ASEAN community itself, the ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, in particular, the broad strategy to strengthening human security, because this framework strategy seeks to address skills challenges such as foundational skills, most notably literacy, and digital skills. So also strengthening technical and vocational education and training and higher education, as well as expanding reskilling and upskilling opportunities for employment. The OECD Skills Strategy for Southeast Asia is particularly useful because it informs these various ASEAN skills initiatives through deepening the analysis of the impact of the megatrends, so for instance, digitalization, as well as COVID-19 on the skills needs of the region. And it also assesses the performance of countries in greater depth and in comparison with benchmarking OECD countries, which is quite important as well in all of the analytical work we do for regions that are non-OECD regions. But we also go beyond and identify policy priorities. We make concrete policy recommendations And also we highlight best practices from the OECD and other regions that may be interesting as well for Southeast Asia.
Okay, and indeed, your strategy shows a broad range of suggestions, but we've also just proven that when we speak about skills and education, we often focus on achieving more education and better skills. But in the qualification mismatch, which is common among Southeast Asian workers, we see not only underqualification, but actually also overqualification. So could you maybe explain a bit what does this mean and how can this be addressed?
So in OECD countries, qualification mismatch is indeed common across Southeast Asian countries. There are different types of qualification mismatches. They can refer to a situation when workers' qualifications exceed those required for their job or under current market conditions, and that's overqualification, or when the workers' qualifications fall short of those required for their job under the market conditions, and that's underqualification. In our skill strategy for Southeast Asia publication, we have shown that about 42% of workers in Thailand, 35% in Singapore, and 32% in Malaysia experience this type of qualification mismatch. The problem is that when individuals are overqualified, this means that the labor market is not able to absorb all the graduates with higher levels of education, or that graduates are not developing the level or type of skills expected by employers. So it is of utmost importance really to provide students with effective guidance and counseling services to inform them to also inform their skills development decisions and orient them better towards developing skills in demand by the labor market. And this support varies a lot in the region. For instance, more than 80% of students in Singapore and Malaysia have access to guidance counselors in schools, but less than 30% have such access in Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. On the other hand, when individuals are underqualified, this means that employers have difficulties finding workers with the right qualifications level, and they resort to hiring underqualified workers. In such instances, workers should receive upskilling and reskilling opportunities in order to help them develop the skills and qualifications they need to position themselves better in the labor market. I should note, though, that for some workers, being underqualified does not necessarily mean that they are underskilled for their jobs, as often workers acquire the required skills non-formally and informally on the job. So that's where a system of recognition of prior learning can help to certify these skills and make them more visible and acceptable to employers.
All right, thank you. So we just touched already on the fact that higher education in itself does not necessarily lead to higher employment outcomes. In this case, maybe because it was the wrong skills or education, but actually we also see this mismatch of correlation in the issue of gender, because like in many other regions in the world, Southeast Asian girls actually outperform boys in school in many subjects, yet later on face a significant employment gender gap. So how can our education and skill systems in the region specifically address this issue?
Yeah, so based on the results of our latest PISA data, that the Program for International Student Assessment, we see indeed significant skills level differences between girls and boys across Southeast Asia. Similarly to OECD countries, girls are performing better than boys in reading, but they're also performing better than boys in mathematics, which is in contrast to OECD countries. So that's quite interesting. This shows that girls in Southeast Asian countries are developing a solid skills foundation. But as you said, there are concerning gender gaps that emerge later on, and that is really the issue. One of those is that women are underrepresented in some STEM fields of study, such as engineering, manufacturing and construction, as well as internet communication technology, so ICT. And since these fields of study tend to be the ones that are in strong demand in the labor market, this underrepresentation in these fields of study contributes to lower employment outcomes. In our study, we found that the male employment rate is higher than the female employment rate by 17 percentage points across Southeast Asian countries, which is significantly higher than the OECD gap of 7 percentage points. So here as well, providing girls with effective career guidance and counseling services to inform their study decisions in line with labor market needs is really essential. Another issue is that women often face working conditions that make it difficult for them to combine work and family responsibilities, which leads to a lower employment rate for women. Significant share of women in the Philippines, about 58%, but also 57% in Singapore and 53% in Malaysia, reported struggling to balance demands of work and family. Key policies that could address this barrier include, there are quite a few of them, but they include providing employment protected pay leave around childbirth and when children are young as well, not only around childbirth, expanding access to subsidized childcare, introducing a statutory right to request flexible work. Another issue is that when women do work, they find themselves disproportionately in low-paid and low-skill occupations. So providing women in that context with targeted reskilling and upskilling opportunities will be important to help them better enter or re-enter the labor market and progress as well professionally. There's no need to mention, I hope, that closing the gender gap in employment would help alleviate skills shortages and provide an important boost to economic growth in these countries. We're really at a stage where it's very clear that the contribution of women to economic growth is essential. It would also significantly reduce the lost investment in education and training women have received.
Thank you for those points. And indeed, unfortunately, most of them are not specific to Southeast Asia, but what we face all around the world.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we've addressed a wide range of issues today in a short time. But for the final question, I'd like to give you a bit more room for your own priorities, because as we both know, at the OECD, we try to work towards better policies for better lives. And so I would like to ask you, what is the one thing that you would like to tell policymakers?
I'd like to tell them lots of things. One main message is that skills are everyone's business. I think that's really the motto we have at the Center for Skills. The only way we can significantly improve skills outcomes is when all relevant actors work together towards this common goal. And by relevant actors, I mean governments, employers, employees, education providers, civil society organizations, and individual partners. It's really a collective effort. So when all relevant actors work well together, we increase our ability to effectively respond to the skills challenges posed by unpredictable events such as COVID-19, as well as the long-term megatrends we have to deal with, such as digitalization or climate change. This allows us to raise well-being and promote growth that is inclusive and sustainable. And at the Center for Skills in the OECD, we stand ready to support countries such as those in Southeast Asia to apply a whole of government and whole of society approach in order to design and deliver better skills policies for better lives in this very rapidly changing world.
Thank you very much, Elisa, for all your insights and thoughts on this. And yeah.
Thank you, Caroline. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.